Better to stop short than to fill to the brim. Oversharpen the blade and the edge will soon blunt. Amass a store of gold and jade, and no one can protect it. Claim wealth and titles, and disaster will follow. Retire when the work is done. This is the way of heaven. We live in a world that is tired. Tired of our jobs. Tired of our worries. Tired of our family responsibilities. In our endless pursuit of more money, more recognition, more value, it seems that we have started to lose our grasp on what in life actually makes us happy. We tell ourselves that all it would take for us to be happy would be to just make a little more money per month. And we find a way to achieve this, only to discover that our standard of living soon inflates to occupy the extra income, and we find ourselves in the same uncomfortable position we were in before. We tell ourselves we would be happy with just a little more time to ourselves, but it just never seems to be the right time to relax with everything we have going on. So we steal a few precious hours from our sleeping time to do things that feel like relaxing but don't actually make us happy. We feel that if we could just find that right person to complete us, that thing we have always been missing in a relationship would finally be found, and we frantically glaze over the people who can love us the most in search for that one idyllic person. Most of us know we are unhappy, but are far too consumed with the great task of making everyone think that we are happy to address the actual issue at hand. Some of us have gotten so good at lying to everyone else that we've begun to lie even to ourselves in our desperate quest to be okay. Western culture throughout history has been nothing if not characterized by a frantic scramble for fulfillment. Many attribute the beginnings of this philosophy to the Puritans of the 16th and 17th centuries. Puritanism evolved first in England as a struggle to bring Roman Catholicism back in line with the teachings of the Bible, or to abolish it altogether. Puritans were heavily influenced by John Calvin, a French theologian of the time. They believed that man was inherently sinful, and that salvation and damnation was left up to predestination. As Puritanism evolved and spread, an increasing hysteria developed around the idea of whether or not a person was foreordained to be saved. Consequently, heavy emphasis was placed on looking for specific signs that supposedly would indicate whether or not your heavenly designation was secure. Such signs included a true conversion, often as evidenced in one's piety in keeping with religious traditions and practices. As time went on, however, even a person's worldly affluence came to signal that they had been blessed and favored by God. The Puritans' extremely rigid expectations for how the self was to be conducted, both in matters of spirituality as well as those of one's worldly achievements. Therefore, religious observance and worldly industry came to be valued far above all else in Puritan culture. Puritans were expected to work hard and pray harder. Puritanism eventually dissolved, fracturing into religions such as Quakers, Baptists, Methodists, and many other religions which still characterize America today. But more importantly for the focus of this video, many of the moral and philosophical pillars of Puritanism still form the girders of what has come to be known as the American way of life. This can be seen in multiple facets of modern Western culture. While many cling to rigid ideals, religiously inspired or otherwise, of how the world is and how its people ought to operate, many, if not most people, still carry out the centuries-old desperation to be more productive, more meaningful, and more respected. Collectively, trillions of dollars in debt are willingly taken on by students striving desperately for college degrees. The oasis of successful and fulfilling careers these pieces of paper are supposed to provide are overshadowed only by the allure of their promised ability to make the person finally be seen as a legitimate and contributing member of society. The moving horizon of retirement ushers us into 40, then 50, then 60-hour work weeks, with the notion that once we have sacrificed enough years of our lives in the pursuit of more things to buy, we will eventually be able to settle down and finally get to the massive possessions that we have accumulated but never had time to enjoy. Hustle culture reigns supreme in our modern world, promising wealth, fame, meaning, and fulfillment, but often delivering frustration, physical breakdown, and emptiness. Lao Tzu's wisdom is perhaps even more important for the world today than at the time he wrote it. Verse 9 of the Tao Te Ching reads, "Better to stop short than fill to the brim. Over-sharpen the blade, and the edge will soon blunt. Amass a store of gold and jade, and no one can protect it. Claim wealth and titles, and disaster will follow. Retire when the work is done. This is the way of heaven. One of the beautiful things about the Tao Te Ching's wisdom is that it can be applied in a myriad of ways depending on a person's individual situation. The only way to optimally apply it to one's life is to take even just a little bit of time for self-reflection. What is really important to you? What is actually important from a universal perspective? Is there anything in your life that you could stand to eliminate or cut back that would help you to live more simply and peacefully? Do you really need to work harder to get more? Or do you already have enough for your needs? Are there areas where you can cut back your consumption instead of increasing your workload? Do you work so hard because you really don't have a choice? Or because it makes you feel important? Do you work hard because it is what you have to do to feel okay about yourself? Why are you trying so desperately to overachieve? These are uncomfortable questions for most of us to address, but these questions may genuinely be the first step to feeling wholeness and completeness, to finding out who we really are, and to becoming aligned with the Tao.